What's up, studio artists? Welcome to my studio. This is just kind of a way for me to bring you guys into this space. Not necessarily for a tutorial, which is usually where I invite you into these spaces, but just to kind of show you some work and kind of share with you some of the stuff that I do in this studio. In other words, what makes this studio? What makes studios really special? I would even go so far as to say sacred places. Maybe I'll start by just kind of introducing you to the space. Since I started sharing videos from this space during the initial COVID lockdown, I've totally revamped this place. It used to be more of a workshop. Now I'm using this space every day as a teaching studio, and in order to stay focused, in order to stay organized, the studio got completely stripped down of all the extra stuff, and this is more of a place of study and small-scale fabrication. I've also brought in my bookshelves, and so I have a whole sort of array of different things I read and bring into the studio. Everything from poetry to sort of theological discourse to philosophy to sort of contemporary essay writing. Specifically, I've pulled a couple things off the shelf. The Sun magazine, predominantly sort of readers write, interviews, poetry, and short stories, fiction. Some other texts that I pulled off the wall as an example of the sort of poetry I may return to. Padre Gotuoma is a poet. This particular copy is one that I think I'll probably read from in class. And then I pulled another text off the wall. This is the catalog from a MoMA exhibition that Neri Oxman hung in New York. One of the pieces of sculpture I wanted to show you guys is a piece I completed a few years ago, and it was included in a show with a group of other artist friends of mine. And the show was called What Would We Do with Lynn Tillman? Lynn Tillman's an author that we are all studying. She wrote a book called What Would Lynn Tillman Do? And so we created a show called What Would We Do with Lynn Tillman, based the whole show on a sort of an artist collective reading the book. The title of the piece is Broom of the Sculpture Studios of the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. It's something like 70 broom handles that have been segmented into little finger joint chain links and joined together end to end to end to end, and sort of reeled up on this steel fabricated wheel of sorts. The production method that I used was this very mechanistic, almost factory-like repetition. Each one of these chain links is painstakingly fabricated with a 17-step process, and it's all done by hand with some simple machinery. This piece then kind of gave way to another piece that I fabricated, and actually was a commission for a brewery in town, but the whole process similarly involved this painstakingly slow and incredibly complicated assembly method. I told the brewery owner when we put it up on the wall that nobody's going to have a beer sign like this in the entire country, because nobody would ever want to make it again. It was so painstakingly slow. Likely probably 1,000 hours of fabrication, everything from cutting and grinding steel rods to tack welding them in place to assembling and installing this thing. And actually I have sort of an ongoing or an open project that is still kind of in the works, and I'll give you guys a sense of what that looks like in the production and sort of where I'm imagining the piece might go. So in this piece I'm still sort of thinking through some of the production of it, and wood is riven with a hatchet and then split down into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces, and I've always been really kind of interested in the way wood splits, the way riven wood sort of feels and behaves. And so I've sort of taken to sort of having as an exercise using a small wood carving knife and sort of dividing and subdividing and subdividing and subdividing, and the exercise itself, like most sort of studio exercises, is somewhat slow, somewhat kind of methodical. It starts to have that similar kind of feel, I think, for me, in this kind of mechanical, kind of slow, repetitive action. But what I end up kind of getting here in the end are really intricate, each one sort of somewhat different from the next. Subdivided, sort of spidered, capillary-like pieces, right, that start with a main trunk, and each trunk that splits and is divided and divided and divided, segmented and brought in a tree trunk that has some hollows in it. And I'm just going to begin sort of an experiment in bringing this sort of a bird's nest, or I've actually been calling it my dray. A dray is a squirrel's nest, what they call it, the sticks everywhere. This is maybe something that I'll share with you guys in process as we go, and kind of give you a sense of how my process might work on a project that began like this one, without a real kind of like straight line path towards any particular end goal. It began as really sort of a studio experiment, and I can't stop thinking about it, so I'm just going to keep on working towards it gently and see where it takes me.